wanted to talk a little bit about how important it is sometimes to let go of other people in your life who are there to, uh, maybe be your friend, but also to be a force of manipulation in your life, or maybe they're controlling, or maybe they're just kind of, they have ideas that are not very good, not very healthy. They have a little bit of something toxic going on. And as long as you're around them, you're going to always be tempted to kind of go that way too. And this is really easy to see if you have people that have some kind of addiction going on, like maybe drinking or smoking or something like that. People will say, well, I want to quit smoking, but then they think, well, if I quit smoking, then I'm going to have to stop going to the smoking area and hanging out with my friends, or who I thought were my friends, that are out there going for their smoke break. And they're going to be like, oh man, why are you not with us? Why are you not doing this? And so there's that sense of loss socially when you give up something which is a toxic behavior or a toxic habit, because you know that all the people who have that attitude are going to wind up being disappointed, and then ultimately they will leave you behind because they aren't really loving you. They're loving that camaraderie of someone else that's going to be validating their own bad behaviors. But where it gets interesting is sometimes it's not just an addiction or something that's super easy to measure, like smoking. Like it's super easy to talk about that because we can all measure it in a very clearly defined way. But what about things that are more things like worldviews, or things like people who are driven by ego too much? Your friends are all chasing success, they're chasing careers, they're chasing things that make themselves look credible instead of things that actually are true, credible, strong foundations built on good character. Maybe they're ignorant in some particular way, politically or religiously or in some other way. They tend to have their views that they're set in their ways on, and they're not going to change. And as long as you're with them, they're going to want you to kind of validate their position. And maybe they're gossipers. Maybe they're people who like to talk behind people's back. They like to make jokes that are at the expense of somebody else. All of those kinds of things where if you're completely honest and completely transparent, you'd say, well, this isn't really a super healthy way to behave. It's not a really good kind of a mindset to have toward life. And then you'll think, well, maybe I should try to change myself. But then you'll always feel like once you get into that circle again, you're once again potentially validating someone else's bad behaviors, and you're allowing their bad behaviors to become things that you emulate yourself. And so sometimes it's really good to just level set by walking away from all of those things in your life, people in your life that are negative influences. And it's easy to measure, like I was saying, if we're talking about something like hanging out with people that want to go steal, or hanging out with people that want to go do drugs or something like that. It's easy to understand that. It's easy to see that. But it's harder when you're talking about things which could ultimately be just as destructive in your life, like negative influence to do things that are not entirely wholesome from a point of view of just saying, is this edifying? Is this uplifting? Is this encouraging me to be the right kind of a person? Is this helping me to grow in my personal career? Is it helping me to grow in my personal relationships? Is it helping me to develop skills? You know, there's people who will always be there to invest in you as long as you are, you're an extension of whatever it is that they are identifying as long as you're building up their ego, they want you to be successful. But as soon as you draw a different line in the sand and you say, I'm going to go in a different direction, well, suddenly they don't have interest in you anymore. They don't want you to be successful unless you are being, a force of validation for whatever it is they have going on in their life. And it could be a relationship, it could be a marriage, it could be coworkers, it could be people who you've known for your whole life. It can be just being stuck in that rut, in that routine of every day you go to the same job, every day you see the same people, every day you text the same friends, and then you wonder, well, why am I not growing? Why am I not going from where I am to some place that's better, something that's more healthy, something that's more meaningful? And I'm always reminded of this story of Jonah in the belly of the whale. And it's a Bible story, but as it was, God wants Jonah to go somewhere and to do something different. He wants him to go preach or something of that nature. In any case, Jonah doesn't want to go do this mission that he's been given. He doesn't want to go on the quest. So instead he gets in the boat and he goes on a journey somewhere else. But no matter how much the boat tries to go, it hits a storm, and the sailors can't overcome the storm. They keep on hitting the turbulence, and they try to lighten their load, and nothing that they do works. The storm just gets worse the more they try to fight it. And eventually the sailors on this ship realize, well, the reason why there is a storm is because our cargo involves Jonah, and Jonah is on here, and this is a man who's running from the will of God. He's running from destiny. He's not on the right path. And so as long as we have him on board, we're not going to be able to follow our path, because he's bad luck, right? So they throw Jonah overboard, and then of course that's the story we all know. Jonah got swallowed up by the whale, and he lived in the belly of the whale for a period of time. And so there's that. It's not about the story of Jonah from there. It's about the fact that those sailors are on this ship. Imagine that. They're on the ship. They want to do the right thing. They want to go the right place. They're not involved in any of this. They're just trying to do their thing. But as long as they have Jonah in the hold, they can't. And I thought that was an interesting story. It's something that's always stuck to me, because sometimes we go through these motions, and we have these things that are, that we want to do in our life. We want to grow, we want to change, we want to evolve into what we're meant to be. But then we also don't want to let go of the things which are familiar. And sometimes, it's like stock options, right? If you're familiar with that, stock options will give you stock, which you'll get, but you won't get it right away. You get it later on. And so you have to keep on working for that company, because if you leave, then you don't get the maturity of the stock option. So it's like a carrot, right? Dangled in front of people, and it's always going to be there. You always have some stock options that are not yet mature. And so if you want to get that stock, you got to work another, 3 years or something. And the problem with that is 3 years from now, you're going to have more stock grants. And there's always going to be that carrot there saying, well, if you wanted to go do something else, well, maybe, why don't you wait for a little bit longer? And life sometimes is like that, though. There's always something there, something comfortable, something to keep us kicking the can down the road that will change later on. We'll find a more convenient time to do what we know we probably should do today. And sometimes you just got to walk away from people. You got to cut out all of the negative things. You got to cut out all of the toxic relationships. And then you've got to be willing to accept this space of being alone, a space of getting to know who you are, being true to your own self first and above all. But no matter how much you might think, well, maybe I can do that without giving up anything, seldom does it really work out that way. Usually, if you really want to change your life, you're going to have to give up all of the companions who have traveled along with you up to this point. You're going to have to make peace with the fact that you are leaving the port and you're going to sail off on a journey which is your own. And quite possibly, quite probably, no one will be following you. No one will be coming with you. You're going to be going off on an adventure to sail uncertain, undiscovered places. And you're going to let go of people. And oftentimes they're good people. It's just they aren't really doing good for you. Because there's always going to be the folks who would rather build up their ego with some kind of water cooler talk that's at the expense of somebody else. The people who are not willing to challenge their own perceptions of the world. They're always going to be focused on themselves. They're never going to be focused on something greater than themselves. They're always going to be just a little bit cynical. They're always going to be there to tell you why you should be a little bit cynical too. And when you let go of those people, then suddenly it's a lot easier to see the universe as a friendly place. It's a lot easier to do things which edify and build up and make you feel more spiritually whole. It's a hard thing to do, though, to give up things that are familiar so that you can invest your time, your energy, your life in things that are more wholesome. And there will always be the naysayers. They'll be like, well, you know, if you walk away, you're never going to have it as good again. You're never going to be able to replace what you lose. It's too risky. It's going to be too hard. There's always going to be those naysayers. And why is it? You know, why do they do that? Well, I think quite often it's just like any abusive relationship in the history of the world. The abuser doesn't want their victim to leave because they know that if a person realizes that they have strength on their own, then they will leave their old manipulators behind. And manipulators have nothing if they don't have people to keep in their orbit, under their thumb. Because manipulators don't really have an identity of their own. Their whole focus is all about controlling others, not about serving. And the truth is that life is all about service. Life that is truly meaningful is about finding something that you believe in and serving it wholeheartedly with a good conscience. Not about getting other people to do what you want, getting other people to agree with you, getting other people to do what you're doing. And yet, those toxic people, the manipulative people, the folks who are more likely to make you casually lose faith in humanity, those are the kinds of people who are also the easiest to find as you make your way through life. If you're not careful, sometimes you can be surrounded by a few bad apples, perhaps well-intentioned bad apples, and then you'll start to have that belief that the whole world is like that everyone is a little bit corrupt around the edges, that everyone is a little bit evil. And then you'll compromise yourself as well, and you'll start to have that same attitude toward life, that because the world is a flawed and dangerous place, you can't afford to live up to your values either. And it's a dull place to live in, a world where everything is all about darkness and compromise and loss instead of abundance and gain. So anyone and anything that winds up not aligning with that value of positivity, of building faith, of adding to your sense of hope for the future and faith in others, let go of those things. Don't be afraid to hit the reset button and start over sometimes. It is frightening. And there will always be people to tell you that you're going to lose out on a lot if you walk away. But I think it's interesting how often people do walk away from things and realize in hindsight that they have no regrets. Meanwhile, many people stick to the comfortable paths and never challenge themselves, never challenge others, just keep the status quo. And I think probably, if they're honest, a lot of those people wind up wondering how their life might have been different if they would have had the courage to venture out, to walk away, to pick a new spot on the map and say, you know what, I am going to remake myself, not in the image of someone else, not according to their vision, but according to what I believe to be right. As always, good luck on your adventure, and make sure that as you embark on new journeys and adventures, that they are yours. Don't let someone else live your life on your behalf. Good luck with everything. Till next time. Thanks so much for watching.